All right, so the book that I just read is called Evolution, A Very Short Introduction, part of the Very Short Introduction series, and it's by Brian and Deborah Charlesworth. This book was pretty straightforward. I wanted to read it because I've been thinking about the whole topic of evolution. Being in a community that still, there are a lot of people that still believe in young Earth creationism. And so I don't have much of a background in biology, and I was just, even though I've investigated this before, and I'm, fully aware of the broad strokes of evolutionary theory, I don't have a strong background in biology, and so I'm not particularly fluent in the language. So I just wanted to get more of an idea of the in-depth kind of biological analysis of evolution. This text definitely talked about that. I think there was still a lot that I didn't fully grasp because I don't have as strong of a background in biology. I found with the Very Short Introduction series, they definitely jump pretty hard into the topic and give a very comprehensive description and analysis of whatever it is. And it was the same in this case. I think that one definitely would need at least somewhat of a fundamental understanding, maybe even slightly strong fundamental understanding of biology in order to fully grasp everything. So, I was picking up bits and pieces as I was listening to this, and I think that sort of the response in terms of the context of the book, it's written really just as a primer on evolution, and it's not necessarily written for the sake of a dialogue about, the creation of the earth in religious contexts or whatever. So it's really just more focusing on things that we know and observe about species and, again, the in-depth biology of how we see this working in nature. And that makes sense coming from, the perspective of Darwinian evolutionary theory, where, species and the diversity of species is a major focal point. In any case, I think if you are talking in terms of the religious perspectives of the issue, it'd be pretty easy for someone who doesn't believe in evolution to respond and say, well, this is all stuff that we observe, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it all comes from a common ancestor or something like that. However, that response would really miss the point of the entire scientific enterprise. The whole point of the theory of evolution is that it explains what we see happening very, very well. And even though there are challenges, which they discuss in the book, challenges don't debunk the theory. They just are emergences of the reality that all scientists know, which is that every theory is incomplete. And evolutionary theory, though it's a major part of the picture of what we know about nature, it's not the entire picture. There are still some missing pieces that we need to discover and figure out. And scientists know that. Science is always incomplete, and we're always looking for those answers. But in any case, this was a pretty good book just to get a basic idea of what we know about the idea of evolution, and it worked for what I wanted, which was getting a little bit deeper into the biology and understanding cellular mechanisms and things like that. Overall, pretty straightforwardly good texts, and I would recommend it. I recommend this series, really. It's pretty easy to delve into to get an idea of whatever the topic is. So have fun. Evolution.